Hello and welcome to episode 9 of deValiante Plays As We Know It by Jaime Scribbles Games. This visual novel was part of Ichio's bundle for racial justice and equality. This visual novel contains strong language and mature themes that may not be suitable for all audiences. Discretion is advised. Now, without further ado, let's get started. Coffee before work. It was just another day. Everything is fine. Continue about your life, citizens. Alright, let's go kill some time. Trevor and Bryan show. Trevor and Bryan show. Trevor and Bryan show. Trevor and Bryan show. Trevor and Bryan show! Yes! Why are you here? I walked into the library and saw Eva going over the staff favorite shelf. Diva. Hi, Eva. I don't think I ever bumped into you here before. Eva shrugged. I'm not a huge reader. So, what are you here to get? Just something to read. Whatever catches my eye. It's not like there are a ton of things to do down here when you're not working. That is true, but Icarus is pretty fun, you know. I suppose. It's a little crazy there sometimes. I prefer the quiet library. Right. I should get going. See ya. She was about to teach us pool, child. No, it was my own decision. I messed up. Well, no, that's not true. You see, the thing is, I also prefer libraries to bars. The fact that there is a bar upsets me. But yeah. Like, the fact that there's alcohol in a dystopian world upsets me, but I feel like the reason alcohol became a thing in the first place is because we were doing things about dysentery. Yeah. Anyway. Bye. Eva left, and I glanced over to see Trevor. He was resting his chin in his hand and seemed to be staring off into space. It almost seemed like he got sad whenever Bryan wasn't around, bugging him. He marked down my book without making eye contact, so I left. It was getting late and I was tired. Time for bed. Today is not another day. Woohoo! As soon as I stepped into the security center, I knew something was different. The mayor was there, of all things. He was speaking with Vince and a man who was shackled and sitting at Vince's desk. Okay. The other officers were pretending to work, but I could tell they were eavesdropping by how quiet things were. I figured I'd do the same, so I took my time checking the board and sitting at my desk. These aren't serious crimes, but he doesn't stop. Don't act like I'm not here. He's in here all the time. At least a few times a month. It's getting ridiculous. Exile is a serious matter. And he's got a kid. Look, I get it. You scared me real good. Since when do we get kicked out for nicking a few groceries? Liquors are a luxury item, not something you are entitled to hear. Message received. Let me go and I won't take anything that isn't mine again. The theft isn't the biggest problem. I can't help it if people start fights with me. Where are they? Why am I the only one chained up? I'm aware of his various crimes. I'll have to think about what to do with him. We can't keep him locked up in here forever. I mean, you can. I know he isn't contributing if he's here. But the kid. The mayor fell silent. The prisoner looked between them and licked his lips. He looked like he was trying to think of something to say. Put him back in the cell for now. I need to think it over. Vince nodded. The prisoner tried to beg for mercy, but was dragged back to the holding cells. His shouts were silenced when the door shut. I started to flip through my reports in earnest when a hand touched my shoulder. Diva, it's good to see you. I felt my heart drop. I could feel the eyes of everyone here right now. Mr. Mayor? I have to tell you, working with your mother has been a real pleasure. I don't need to know about the pleasures my mother is giving you, thank you. I nodded. What was I supposed to say? So, he grabbed an empty chair and sat beside me. No, oh no, go away. I know you probably overheard all that. He spoke quietly. This time, no one would hear unless they got closer. Yeah. So what do you think? I always trust your mother's opinion, but she's busy back at my office. I wonder if you both will think similarly? I don't think so. Quite honestly. Should he be given yet another chance? Or should we exile him? His son is too young to keep here alone. I don't know, because this guy is a repeat offender, so we can't forgive him. Though his crimes are minor, so you can't really exile him. Separating the kid from him would probably traumatize the kid, but it would also traumatize the kid to just kick them out into the nonsense that is the above world. I feel like having him live in the jail would benefit him, especially for like a short amount of time. Like, let him go to his job during the day, but at night he comes straight home to the jail, and you do that for like a month, and after that it becomes 2 months, and then 3 months, and then a year. And after a year, if he still hasn't like done anything, then you exile him. Like, I know that sounds like passive, and like, yeah, no, he can't live in the jail forever, but if he's still going to his job but coming back to the jail at night, and like he only sees his kid like once a week, like, he needs to understand what he's going to lose. And I feel like punishing the kid for his father's crimes is not the right thing to do. So it would be like, you would have to, in the time that like he's like his like 6 month to year long stint would be when you would start looking for a foster or permanent family to take care of the child. Because he would have to be taken care of anyway. So you would have him in a foster family until dad gets out of jail. And then when the dad is on his final stint, like this is his last chance. Like after this, it's like, you are causing way too many problems in this community. You cannot stay here. In that case in particular, when he's exiled, at least the kid will have a family that we know is taking care of him. That's how you should handle the situation. But that is not an option. So, I don't know. I don't think I could make that kind of decision. I can. It's not easy. That was an interesting perspective, Diva. Thank you. He gave me a hearty pat on the shoulder and then left. I stared at the paperwork in front of me, desperate to ignore everyone's stares. Eventually things settled down and I was able to properly focus on work. At the end of the day, I learned that the guy was released with yet another warning. I wasn't sure how many more warnings the man would get, though. Work was over, and I had some time to kill. Bryan and Trevor show. Trevor and Bryan show. Trevor and Bryan show. Trevor and Bryan show. That's not my dice app. Trevor and Bryan show. Jim! Why? Tabby better be there. Hang out with Tabby. Tabby was sitting in the corner with her face buried in her arms. She hadn't brought any of her books or toys. Hey. Everything all right? I wondered if she was feeling upset about the protest. That was like 2 weeks ago. The child does not have a... Children have a very short attention span. Let's just be honest. I should cheer her up. So, want to sneak into the greenhouse? Really? Her voice was a little shaky, but she probably didn't want me to interrogate her about it. I was going to sneak in. Want to come? Tabby looked up at me. Her eyes were puffy and red. She nodded and stood up. When she thought I wasn't looking, she rubbed her eyes. I led her towards a side entrance to the greenhouse that tended to be left unlocked. Because I don't know how to read. I had noticed Bryan enter and leave, and he never seemed to remember to lock it. I crept through the hallway like thieves, despite having done nothing illegal yet. When we got to the unlocked door, I glanced around and knew we were alone. What do we do if we get caught? We run or pretend to be very lost? I think we'll be fine as long as our pockets aren't full of stolen produce. She smirked and nodded, so I opened the door and peeked inside. What if Bryan is the contraband? Or like he's working with the black market, and so he leaves it open so the people from the black market can come and steal produce and then give it to Gloria, who is the mastermind. Oh. I led Tabby inside the greenhouse, and we managed to avoid being seen by anyone. We walked around aimlessly, but somehow managed not to get lost. Then we made a quick exit before we were caught and headed back to the gym. That was awesome, right? Thanks, Diva. I'm going to head home before Dad starts to worry about me. Want me to walk you there? No, I'm not a baby. All right, just be safe. Is it really dangerous on the surface? Her face looked sad, and she was searching my face for answers. Her whole tone had changed. It's dangerous, but you don't have to worry about that. You live in Camden. I guess. All right, see you later. Okay. I grabbed the stuff I had left behind and went home as well. It was getting late and I was tired. Time for bed. How am I not getting stars with Tabby? Tell me this. Tell me how I'm not getting stars with Tabby. Yeah, we all know this by now. Isn't it? Yep, just another fucking day. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Don't really care about your target practice or your monthly preparation. That was like... Are we already on week 7? Did we skip a week? No, surely we didn't. I don't know. Don't ask me questions. I don't know. Alright. Bryan and Trevor show. Bryan and Trevor show. Bryan. Yes! Bryan and Trevor show! I walked in the library and observed the typical scene of Trevor and Bryan at the counter. Trevor pretending to be busy and Bryan loitering. Oh, they switched plots. I thought about what kind of book to get. Pick up something new. 2 was fantasy. I grabbed Carbons and brought it up to Trevor. Diva, your mom's book is overdue. What? She needs to bring it back or she'll have to pay a fee. A fee? Books go missing sometimes. A fee helps encourage people to return them when they're done. It's a week overdue. Not a huge deal, really. Just maybe bring it in for her next time you stop by. I looked between them. I was starting to feel really irritated. Why were they bothering me about my mom's overdue book anyway? Okay, I'll tell her. I gave up. Who else would keep track of her books but me? What if she lost it or something? That would be bad. Try to bring it back. Okay. It's not like she'll be exiled or anything. It's only a few beads. Bryan shrugged. She hardly ever comes in. Just tell her. Otherwise, I'll have to send an official note, and it's a pain in the ass. Alright, got it. Trevor made a weird grunt noise, and I assumed was a good sign. I already hoped Mom hadn't lost that book. I made my way back home. Why hadn't my mom been to the library to return the book? She had been gone a lot of evenings, probably just working late, or staying over at her boyfriend's house. It was getting late and I was tired. Time for bed. Hey, I got new stars with Trevor. I'm going to be best friends with Trevor, so I can watch the Trevor and Bryan show. Okay, coffee. Hey, look, something's happening. I walked in and the whole room was alive. People were running around and Vince was shouting orders over the noise. If I hadn't called for you, then you go about your usual duties. Eva stood beside him looking worried. I went out to ask about it, but Vince interrupted me. Diva, your assignment is on the board. I could only nod as he walked away. The water was shut off. What? Why? Mechanical error? I gotta help Vince with keeping some people calm. People are pretty upset about the water. I would be too. That's strange. Eva left to join Vince as they headed out. I tried to focus on my duties, but I couldn't help but worry about the water. After a few hours, though, it was turned back on, and all was well. Work was over, and I had some time to kill. Trevor and Bryan show, Trevor and Bryan show, Trevor and Bryan show, Trevor and... Aww. Well, Icarus isn't so bad. Maybe Jude will be there. Nothing particularly interesting was going on in Icarus today. There are a few things I could do. Going out with Sam. I started to walk into the bar, but was stopped by a very irate Sam. Get out! All of ya! There were people filtering out of the bar all around me. Sam, what's wrong? She finally seemed to spot me and pointed at me. You can stay. I wasn't sure if I wanted to at this point, and I was too scared to disobey her. What's going on? I spoke quietly as the rest of the people fled. She just shrugged and returned to the bar and offered me a drink. Order a drink, I guess. I'll take a hard water. She started to get my drink together, muttering under her breath. The never-some people. Yeah? She sighed and lowered her head into her hands, then made a noise. It was either a growl or a groan. I wasn't sure. I probably overreacted, but I don't care. Sometimes you just gotta get a break from people's shit, you know? I nodded and sipped at my drink. Things were getting rowdy and loud, so... She shrugged. I guess you're okay, though. I smiled and took another drink. I was too nervous to speak, but I was happy she seemed to be patient with me. She also seemed to be done venting, because she turned away and let silence fall between us. Yay, we got 2 stars with Sam. Okay. Just another day at the security force. Nobody cares. I'm ready for the Trevor and Bryan show when I get home. Can I get it? Let's roll to see if I find out if I get to watch the Trevor and Bryan show today. No, I don't. I have to go back to Sam. Ugh. Okay, Sam's cool. I walked in feeling a little more exhausted than usual. Then I glanced around and saw something that made me even more tired. Mom was here, with the mayor. They hadn't seen me yet. Was this something I really wanted to deal with right now? Wow, why is the option... Where's the option of just go to the bar and pretend you didn't see them? Let's just say hello. I didn't want to, but I walked over to see what they were doing anyway. Diva, it's good to see you. Hey, Mom and Mr. Amir. Please, join us. I sat down. Working late? Not tonight. Rick thought we deserved a night off. Your mother has managed to help me restructure my organization methods to be considerably more efficient. That is a really fancy talk for me, archiving his older files. It was something I could never get around to doing before. Is my mom your first assistant? Seems like you would have had a small horde of them. My work requires precision, and I will admit I have some troubles trusting others to help me with it. And he thought my scatterbrained mother was the right one to help him with that? I leaned back and said nothing. I love helping with this community. This is such an improvement over our old life. Don't you think so, Diva? It did suck on the surface. That is an understatement. An awkward silence descended upon us, and I decided enough was enough. Well, I'll leave you guys to relax. I'm going to head home. See you later, Mom. All right, hon. See you later tonight. I made my exit as quick as possible. I was ready to spend a bit of time at home, alone. It's getting late. I was tired. Time for bed. Why isn't your mom, like, one of these options, you know? I mean, I feel like you would have, like, full stars with her, but, like, over time they would decrease because you're, like, driving more, or the mayor is driving more and more of a wedge between y'all. Yeah. I just finished getting dressed when there was a knock on the door. It's probably Micah. When I opened it, I called it. When I opened it, I saw Micah standing in the hall, looking down at his feet. He glanced up at me, and I gave him a small grin. I thought, perhaps, if you were not otherwise engaged, you would like to pass the afternoon together? I was surprised to see him at my door. All I could do was nod. I moved aside and let him in. Mom wasn't home or anything. She was hardly ever home. Thank you. I hope I wasn't interrupting anything. No, I was actually about to go try to see you. I felt heat creep into my face at the admission, but Micah only smiled. Then our meeting was inevitable. I'm glad to have saved you a trip. Would you like anything? Water, some... I think they're called grapes? It's very kind of you to offer, but I'm fine. I sat at the table, and he did as well. We sat there quietly for a moment. I had no idea what to say. I felt like I knew so little about Micah. Micah, I have no idea how to entertain you. What do you like to do besides read? Oh, I apologize. I can be a bit guarded. He smiled and looked down at his hands. I enjoy many things, but books the most. I like to escape, which I suppose sounds incredibly childish. I should probably claim to enjoy broadening my experience or learning new things or something of that nature. I guess I'm a little bit surprised. I enjoy other things. Music, of course, who doesn't? Good food. I suppose those are really banal things. No, you can enjoy what you want to. I really enjoyed dancing with you at the Winter Festival. I smiled at him and leaned against the table. It had been a really fun night. They're showing a movie at the community center tonight. Do you want to check that out? I've never seen one. I heard about it earlier today. Oh, sure, of course. I wonder which one they'll show. There's more than one? I thought they were very rare. Of course, but the mayor has slowly managed to accumulate 3. 3? Wow, that's amazing. What are they? They're all really old. One is a romance movie about a sinking boat. The other is about aliens fighting in space. And the last one is something scary with a weird clown monster. Oh, those all sounded so different. Which one was I hoping they show? Which fighting aliens movie? There's like 20 million of them. Okay. Apparently we want to watch the old romance. The one with romance in a sinking boat sounds interesting. Getting to see the ocean, that by itself might be worth it. I am rather fond of that one myself. Micah smiled and stood from his seat. We can go check it out if you like. I've seen them all a dozen times, but imagine watching it with you will be an interesting experience. Why? reactions will be fascinating. It'll be like watching it for the first time all over again. I shrugged and glanced away. Well, let's get going. We headed into the community center and found some empty seats. They began showing the movie about aliens fighting. It had some cool effects. After it ended, we sat and chatted about the movie. Micah seemed to want to know what I thought about every little detail of it. It got late, so we reluctantly parted ways. When I got home, I ended up thinking more about Micah than the movie. It was getting late, time for bed. How am I still only 1 star with this child? Not Tabby, sorry. 1 heart with Micah. We danced, we watched a movie. He found me. Like, he came and looked for me. That has to be more than one heart. I'm going to start actively going after Jude if you don't get your shit together, Micah. Mom woke me up for yet another important community meeting thing. Before I could protest, she handed me a cup of coffee and moved so I could attempt to wake up. Last week, there was the Winter Festival, and I had spent it with Micah. I smiled into the coffee, but tried to focus on waking up and getting ready. I glanced up at Mom, who was happily humming. I now knew without a doubt that there was no stopping whatever was going on between my mom and the mayor. So I just mentally wished her luck. Ever since coming here, we'd only seemed to grow further and further apart, but that might be a good thing. I didn't need to fret over here as I used to. We arrived at the community center, and I couldn't help but overhear a lot of talk about the recent water issues. It had only occurred once and hadn't lasted long, but it was enough to put people into a panic. Mom left to assist the mayor, so I started to look around the room and saw familiar faces. Hey, Trevor and Bryan, Vincent, Tabby, Iris, and Sam. Oh, interesting. Okay. So I don't get to sit with my love choices. So let's see. Who do I want to sit? I want to sit with Trevor and Bryan. That's who I want to sit with. Iris is fun. Sam is fun. Vince and Tabby are fun. So, but because I am really invested in this relationship between Trevor and Bryan, I really want to watch the Trevor and Bryan show. So I'm going to roll a D8, or I'm going to roll a D4. Do not upset me. This is upsetting me. I'm going to roll again. Fuck the dice. I sidled up to Trevor, unsurprisingly accompanied by Bryan. Trevor only nodded to acknowledge my existence. What do you suppose he'll say about what happened with the water? Why would he bother to say anything? It's not like it wasn't handled quickly. Sure, but people are talking about it. It seemed like more of an annoyance than anything else. I wasn't affected. The greenhouse suffered. It's over. Why bring it up now? Bryan shrugged. Maybe you're right. Guess we're about to find out. The mayor walked up on the stage and we fell quiet. The mayor tapped on the mic gently and then cleared his throat to speak. It was a lot of the same. First he spoke about the Winter Festival. He had gotten a lot of good feedback on it and was looking forward to more events like it in the future. He was excited to go over upcoming news, schedule changes, and mention the various lots that could use donations. Cloth, specifically. Not once did he speak of the disaster on the surface. It had been weeks, but we still had no news. He didn't mention the water issues either. Maybe it wasn't that big of a deal after all. Once it was over, he left the stage and joined my mother. As I left, I heard some people muttering about the water and the surface, but mostly people seemed to be talking about the Winter Festival. I had some time to do before the day was over. Alright, the Trevor and Bryan show was disappointing. However, that doesn't mean there might not be more to it. Maybe they're arguing, having a little lover spat, because the water getting shut off did affect Bryan's, job and also the food source. So that does affect you, Trevor. But we'll find out. We get back to the Bryan and Trevor show. Trevor and Bryan show. I don't know why I call. See what Trevor was up to. Trevor was walking along the shelves with a book in his hand, murmuring under his breath while Bryan watched him. Bryan stood there with a ridiculous grin on his face and seemed quite content. "What you reading?" I sidled up next to Bryan and leaned on the counter as he was. "I'm trying to parse this language. It looks like English, reads like English, yet it's very overly poetic." "Shakespeare?" He nodded and held up the book to me. It was a worn and stained copy of sonnets. "My mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. Coral is far more red than her lips. Red. It's a poem about loving someone as they are without the idealistic." Maybe he was just being funny and insulting. It's hard to say, but... "And yet, by heaven, I think my love as rare as any she belied with false compare." We don't know much about him, so I can't really say his initial intent was. Does his intent matter? He's long dead. It's what we do with the work now that matters. How can you say that? You're going to strip the writing away from the author just because you can't guess at its true meaning? He could have been talking about a pet for all we know. I mean, it's probably going to be most of my poetry. Trevor rolled his eyes and stifled a laugh. "Why do I try to have these conversations with you?" Bryan only shrugged. Trevor glanced at the text one last time, then shut the book and went back to his desk. "Maybe you should have these conversations with Micah. Because then the two of you would get together. Like, you and Micah would get together. Or we would, like, create, like, a triangle. Lover's triangle, because that would make you really sad, and I don't want you to be sad because you sound like one of those people who's just like super happy all the time, and then when you're sad you're like, you go from like up here to down here in like the blink of an eye, and that's like heartbreaking. Anyway, can I see it? Trevor handed it over. The pages felt so thin and delicate. I turned it to the sonnet, only marked as Sonnet 130, because I can read, and read through it. It does seem rather harsh. That isn't the point. He snatched the book back and huffed with frustration. The point is real love, not the idealistic fake stuff. But, forget it. I'm not talking about it anymore, with either of you. Bryan leaned on the desk and placed his chin in his hands, looking at Trevor with mischief. "Then how will we learn? Thou art as wise as thou art beautiful." I know the context of that quote, you know. Bryan grinned and Trevor turned away, but looked utterly conflicted. Does the context matter? Well, just thought I'd chat for a bit. Guess I better get going. Right. See you later, Diva. I almost stumbled a bit as I walked out. He spoke gently, almost like a friend. Was I finally cracking through that grumpy shell of his? It was getting late and I was tired. Time for bed. Thank you for joining me for episode 9 of As We Know It by Jaime Scribbles Games. The next episode will be out shortly. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment letting me know what you like down below. Please no hate or spoilers, as I'm not above removing those comments and the people who make them. That's all for now, folks, and I'll see you next time.